I had to break this down because, as the native Indian said about the Englishman or the European, he said, white man speak with forked tongue. Their language is very precise. Very, very precise. They don't mess up their language. And this is an official document, story, that is probably the number one selling book in the world, the Bible. And they call it the version. So what is the definition of version? According to dictionary.com, a particular account of some matter, as from one person's or source, contrasted with some others, right? So that means I was in an accident, I saw it this way, you were in the accident with me, you saw it another way. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm at the front of the house, I'm looking at the front of the house, you're at the back of the house, your version, your perception is different from my version, my perception. Right, a particular form or variant of something, a modern version of antique blah, 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 translation. There was something in there that jumped out at me that I really loved. Where it said, an abnormal, no, where has it gone? The act of tuning into our child, no, that's not the one I'm looking for. There was one where it said the version. Okay. The synonym of a version, this is a word you can use in its place, yeah? Is story or impression. So instead of using version, you can say my story of events or my impression of events. So you're talking about your perspective of what took place 300 years after, because the first Bible was compiled approximately 300 years after Jesus supposedly lived, right? So you're giving your version, not their version, not somebody else, your version. And then the King James Bible was written when? I don't even remember. In the 1600s or something like that, wasn't it? What you want? Why are you interrupting me?
Sorry, my brother. It's the first time I'm calling this radio station. And right now, I was a very nervous man, but the topic and the conversation, I reached my house and I have to sit down and listen. Because it's part of the old school doctrine that I used to follow and still follow sometimes.
Okay.
Now, regarding the letters,
yes,
right? As far as to what I remember, with the Jesus and the J, in the ancient Cyrillic Aramic, there would have been no J.
Yeah, there's no J in Hebrew either. Yeah. That's Aramaic, yeah.
So therefore, it would have been a Y.
And a Y or a I?
No, we're talking about a Y. You're getting confused. It would have gone like so, a Y, which would have been yeah, which is Y-A-A. Like you have the phonetics as Yahuwah. Right? When the time when God came to Moses, and Moses said, who shall I say sent me? And he said, Yahuwah, which is where the came from Jehovah, which wouldn't have been Jehovah, it would have been Yahuwah.
Okay, what's your point?
So my point is, it's the Y. I ain't got a point, like for instance, Jesus, like you said, it wouldn't have been a J, it would have been Yeshua.
Okay.
Are you with me?
I'm with you, but what are you trying to say? That
No, I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just saying from the old school doctrine, I was taught that it would have been Yeshua. His name would have been.
Okay, well, I'll read from the scholar. You stay there. I'll read from the person who done the research, because that's all I'm doing. He says the following word. You listening? Okay. The following word diagram will show how this name Jesus progression was formulated. Remember, there was no letter J in 1240 AD.
Yeah.
When the name Jesus, spelled I-E-S-U-S, or Jesus was applied to the creation icon Christ, I equaled Z.
Okay, like in Arabic, they use the word Jesus, Isa.
They use the word Jesus what?
They use the word Isa.
Isa,
Jesus.
which is I.
Isa. Yes.
Right.
Do you understand? And
that's not Yah.
No, because you remember you got the Arabic and you got Hebrew.
Yeah, so I'm fully aware of that, which Arabic and Hebrew are pretty much the same languages if you ask me.
Yes. Like you say shalom, like you say salam, they're basically the same thing.
Right.
You see.
Well, I'm just quoting to you from sources that the J was actually an I, and the I was taken from the Z.
Okay.
And they had the sound of zu, is, as you just said, I. I don't know what the Arabics use.
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh,
I need to move.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm following. But the show is very nice.
Thank you very much, sir.
I ain't leaving the guy in the house right now. I'm just going to sit outside here and listen.
All right, you do that. Don't go nowhere.
All right, peace.
All right, take care. Bless. So as I said, version. Version doesn't mean that is a complete translation. It doesn't mean that you just copied it word for word. Version means you're giving your version of events. Not Jesus' versions of events, but your version. And were you there? Well, were you? I don't know. Were you there? How can you have a version? You weren't at the accident. The accident took place in 1 AD. And 300 years later, you write a version, or 1,500 years later, you write a version, which is your perception of what took place 1,300 years ago, 300 years ago. I say it again. Were you there? You wrote a story. Were you there? What else do they call it? An impression. These are synonyms of the word version. Jumped out at me. Another one. I'm not taking the mick. The word Christ. I spoke about that briefly earlier, innit? The word Christ or similar spellings appears in English and most European languages, owing to the Greek usage of Christos. Christ has now become a name, one part of the name Jesus Christ, but originally it was a title, Messiah, and not a name. The version of Hebrew Bible, blah, 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 there was something in there that jumped out at me. That's why I'm reading it to you. The spelling Christ in English was standardized in the 18th century. So even Christ, the word Christ, was not used. It was Messiah. So it should have been, if he did really exist, it should be Jesus Messiah, not Jesus Christ. So when you're praying, I don't know about you, but I like people to call me by my proper name. You know, if I'm in a doctor's surgery and I need my medication or I'm in a queue, please call me by my proper name. Jesus Messiah. I say it again, I'm not trying to tell nobody not to be a Christian. I'm just pointing out some things for those people who might not want to be Christians but don't have the information to combat these people who are having conversations with them. Right. In the modern usage, the secular term Christ usually refers to Jesus, building, blah, blah, blah. Well, we dealt with that. What else we got here? I got 15 minutes. I'll leave Islam to the very last. We'll do Islam last. I got something about Islam. You're going to love it. Some of you bright theologians might speak of Josephus. Josephus lived in 37 to 100 AD and is credited to be the person who first wrote about Jesus, however you want to pronounce it. All right? His stuff wasn't picked up until about 200 years later, put in the written word. So apparently he wrote about it. He was a Jew, wrote about it. Nobody was interested in it. Then 200 years later, they picked it up. And this is where they got the information from to put the Bible together, or one of the places they got the information from to confirm that a man by the name of Jesus existed. Now, this took place. Take my book out here, just in case you want to. You need to get the book, by the way. The Historical Origins of Christianity, if you're concerned about it. Walter Williams. This took place at the Council of Nicaea. Page 36. Let's get this right. 326, weren't it, producer? Something like that? The Council of, the date. No, it wasn't 9. What kind of producer are you? It wasn't 9 anything. Page 36. Let's find page 36. Here it is, I believe. 325. There you go. I thought it was 326. 325 AD. Where was I? So, around 325 AD, they took this man's information, put it together, said, because he wrote about it 200 odd years ago, 300 years ago, because he wrote about it 300 years ago, this is the only person that supposedly wrote about it. They said, well, the person must have existed. However, there are arguments that he wasn't actually writing about a Jesus, he was writing about somebody else. Maybe, as Susan said, he was writing about John the Baptist, or however John the Baptist was pronounced back then. But you can get this information yourself, and I encourage you to do so on Wikipedia. And when you read it on Wikipedia, where you see the little blue lines, the little blue numbers, click those numbers, because that's the source where they get the information from. It'll take you to the bottom of the Wikipedia page, and at the bottom of that page, you will see the book where they got that information from, or the documentary where they got it from, or the journal where they got it from. And then you could go to that journal and read it for yourself. So it won't be a version. You understand? Oh, ooh. What's your name? Where you calling from? Yeah. Same to you. What else we got here? What else have we got here regarding Jesus, and what else do we want to cover? You probably should call in, Jennifer, and ask me some questions, because I've been reading. I don't know what to pick out for you. The Council of Ephesus. No, we're not going to deal with that. What else are we going to deal with? I know what I'm going to deal with. We're going to deal with this. This is a documentary by a doctor, a professor. His name is Robert Redford. I believe I played it before on the show. I'll play it again for you. Sorry, I'm treading over old ground, right? Now, he speaks about how Christianity stole everything from all the pagan religions, right? That Christ was a version of Mithras or Osiris or Horus, as I said earlier. Now, this is a Christian theologian doctor. This is a documentary that was on Channel 4. This is a black man with locks, theologian, Christian, PhD. That means he's got a degree, he's gone past masters, he's gone past MPhil, and he's got a PhD, right? He's pretty much written a book. He's a Christian, hardcore Christian, and he himself, in this little piece here, what I'm going to play for you, says that everything that the Christians have, they took it from Rome, Greece, and Egypt. And I'll bring it back to you. I'll conclude it after you've had a listen. It's about 7 minutes. Have a listen.
Mithras was a pagan god with a story, a purpose, and elements of ritual very similar to that of Jesus, but one whose origins could predate him by thousands of years. But the fact is that Mithraism failed to survive, and it was Christianity that conquered the Roman Empire. But we do know that early Christian fathers were very worried about the similarities between Christianity and Mithraism, especially the charge that Christianity borrowed many of its ideas from this pagan cult. So when paganism was officially outlawed, particular animosity was shown towards Mithraism. Many of its temples were destroyed, and others had churches built on top of them. But Mithraism did leave one mark on Christianity. When later church fathers were deciding what anniversary to celebrate the birthday of Jesus, they chose December the 25th, the winter solstice, which also happens to be the birthday of Mithras. I had been told that there was another place, one of the key locations for early Christianity, where the similarities between Jesus and other pagan gods are even more obvious: Egypt. Christianity came very early to Egypt. One tradition claims it arrived just 30 years after Jesus' death. It has also always puzzled scholars why Christianity took hold so easily here. One theory claims it was because of its many parallels with ancient Egyptian religious ideas and rituals. Egyptologist Dr. Boyana Moisov is an expert in the ancient cult of Osiris.
Boyana, nice to meet you. Robin.
Hello.
Can we go inside?
Sure.
She claims it has uncanny similarities to Christianity and the story of Jesus. I met her in Abydos, in Upper Egypt.